Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Poodling Around. Today's episode is a little longer, but there was so much to talk about that I thought it best to let you hear it all. Anyway, when you're poodling around, you need to have super comfy feet, and that's what today's interviewee is going to tell us all about. Today's interview is a chat with Janan Leo, the inventor of the foldable shoe, who I first launched in 2007. She now does so much more than that, as you will hear. So if you appreciate poodling around in comfort in fabulous footwear, or also appreciate lifting your mood with other female-friendly products, this is the one for you. You'll also be inspired by a small business owner who's never thrown in the towel. So with no further ado, let's talk to Janan. So Janan, this is the 15th anniversary year of Cocorose London. So can I start today by asking you to tell our listeners a little bit about Cocorose London and its origins, what you did before you founded the business, and where the spark for the business idea came from?
Yes, it's been 15 years. I can't quite believe how that's come about, but it has been 15 years since I founded the business. We are a women's footwear brand, and when I first started the business in 2007, it was very much about a foldable footwear brand. And I created this, I invented the foldable shoe because I needed it as a personal it was a personal need for myself. I was working in London, leaving home first thing in the morning, getting home late at night, and all those years ago, if you remember, we were in heels, and for me, it was just one of those things. Well, I mean, when I grew up, I was always in trainers or flats, flip flops or trainers or so, and for me, it was just I can't wear heels. I can't last in heels all day and all night. And so for me, it was very much about creating this product which would blend into my lifestyle. So one day walking down, well, we live in Muswell Hill. So I was walking down the hill, and it was this spark. It was this spark of an idea that came to me, which was like, foldable shoes. That's what I need. That is exactly what I need to create and make my life easier. And I couldn't get that idea out of my head. And I spent ages just researching it and developing it and trying to understand, like, how could I create a pair of foldable shoes? It took me about a year to do all of that, and then I set up the business, and yeah, that was in 2007. So it has so I guess the business was very much focused on the whole foldable side or foldable aspect shoe wise. But I think over the years, as we've grown and become more established as a business, and then certainly as an international brand as well, we very much learned that what our customers love about us is comfort. And so we took that whole comfort aspect of it and created our collections that we have today. So you'll see how we have foldable shoes, we've also got leather flats, and we've also got trainers, and how comfort just runs through everything and is that common DNA throughout all the collections.
And how easy was it to get people to accept a foldable shoe 15 years ago?
Well, I laugh because I think if we talk about industry experts, then I would say it was incredibly difficult to get any industry expert to accept the concept of creating a foldable shoe. I remember I went I entered an award which was part of the British Footwear Association, and I had so much pushback from the panel on that, to the extent that I had an apology after as well. But it was just about how, the feedback that I was getting from both designers and buyers and industry experts within the footwear industry was about, well, you can't create that. Don't be ridiculous. That's not a product. And on the other hand, what really kept me going was the direct customer feedback that I was getting from real customers. So, I used to do the markets in East London, and I had the website as well. So I'd just get these like random orders coming in through the website, and then I'd be able to speak to customers at the markets as well. And the feedback that I was getting from them was, this is amazing. This is exactly what I need. And people were buying. And so it was different in the sense of, on one hand, from the real customers, I was getting such incredible feedback. And yet, on the other hand, from the industry, I wasn't. And so it was really interesting for me to sort of split it up in that way. And clearly customers are really important, aren't they? And I think for me, that's what really spurred me on and inspired me to carry on and to keep going. I mean, incidentally, now, like, we are members of the British Footwear Association. They are fantastic, and we have a giggle about all those years ago, because you know yeah, I mean, different people at that time, but it was very much like, yeah, we all have a bit of a laugh and a joke over it now. So no hard feelings or anything like that. But it was just, you needed to have a bit of well, I'm glad that I had a bit of a, what do you call it? A steel core, in the sense that it didn't really affect me what they said. Because if I would have let what they say affected me, then I wouldn't have gone ahead and done this.
Mm.
So yeah, really interesting how feedback can be so different. And I think that's why it's so important to get as much feedback as you can from all sorts of different walks of life.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of materials, for instance, were they very different from what you use now? I mean, I'm guessing that it needed quite a bit of experimentation to get this right.
Yeah, so I was using materials that you wouldn't normally use on traditional shoes. I was trying to think outside the box in terms of how I could create a pair of shoes that would fold and still retain the whole shoe-like features to it. So it was very much about trying to think differently. And then but over the years, I've been able to work much closely with our production partners, and actually create more bespoke and specific things, like our outsoles that we use on the leather flats that we have at the moment. But yeah, during those early days, it was I it was a different time then as well. I was doing this, and I was trying to create this new product, and I very much didn't want to, in a way, give the idea to a big manufacturer.
Mm.
Because if I was to just give it away, it was so easy for somebody else to say, oh, that's a great idea, I'll just take it and run with it. So I was trying to do things almost break things down so much, so that I would be able to create something completely different, that the manufacturers wouldn't necessarily be able to just take that idea and run. So yeah, it was very much different in those days. But I think, coming back to the core principles of the brand and the products, I think that's very much still retained today, in the sense of, at the beginning, it was very much about comfort, style, convenience, and it is today as well. So things, that has carried on through the 15 years that we've been going. And I think that's really, really important to the brand, and remaining true to our DNA as well.
And I think, to put that into context, 2007 was actually, I think, 9 years before a lady called Nicola Thorpe was actually sent home from the office for not turning up with high heels on. So, I
Was
mean,
that
it was
years?
absolutely groundbreaking at the time. When you think that, they were going to fine her for not having an inch, I think it was a heel between 2 and 4 inches she was supposed to wear in the office all
Yeah.
day long. And when you think, that was actually quite recent, it's quite incredible that, way back then you were able to even get as far as you did, given the attitudes. I mean, do you think those attitudes have changed at all since you started?
It's so funny when you say that, because 9 years, that sounds like such a long time ago. But at the same time, do you remember, like, around about the same time, I'm sure there were other stories about air hostesses, like on the planes as well, where they had to wear a heel. It was very much this whole uniform thing. And I remember there was another case in Japan that made quite a few headlines as well, very similar to Nicola Thorpe's case, in terms of women being made to wear heels. So Yeah, I think attitudes have really changed. When in 2007, when I started, the whole reason for starting was because I was wearing heels at work and I
Mm,
needed something to change into. And that's where my idea came from. It was about being able to create or being able to change into something a lot more comfortable. And, over the years, that has definitely relaxed. We've seen the trend of how trainers have really come on and come into their own as well in terms of coming into the market. And then, of course, we've had COVID. So people have been working from home. And, you've got that whole much more relaxed vibe. So definitely, I've seen a huge change over the years in terms of going from, more, let's call it like more formal shoes, heels, to a much more relaxed attitude. But, I think I think that's something for us as a brand that's been really positive as well, because we've always focused on comfort and flats. So it's been something that has been very true to ourselves in terms of developing our styles and keeping true to our DNA in that sense of being able to create and design beautiful, comfortable flats that women would not just feel comfortable in from a physical point of view, but also very confident mentally. And I think this is something that's really key as well in terms of, when I think back to when I would wear flats and I felt frumpy, that had quite an impact on how you then feel about from a confidence point of view. So for me, it's always been about creating flat shoes that women can feel really not just physically comfortable in, but mentally confident in as well. And because I always think that you're going to perform at your best when you're there, when you're sure of yourself, when you feel really good about yourself. So that's always been quite a big factor for me as well.
mm. And I know that you've sold your shoes worldwide. I mean, this has been a worldwide phenomenon, hasn't it, the brand? But can you tell us a little bit about some of the countries that you've sold into?
Yeah, so we have sold worldwide, and I feel really fortunate to be able to say that. And I mean, I think when we go back all those years as well, the retail was so different to where we are today. We were doing trade shows and like we were from New York to Paris to Vegas to Tokyo. We were there. It was so exciting from that point of view, and it was so yeah. So just going to all of these countries was amazing. But not only that, the reason why we were able to sell in all those countries in the way that we were was because we found amazing partners to be able to work with. So we would work with, for example, like our guys out in Japan who were incredible. And one of the great things about them is they absolutely love the Royal Ballet. And so when we had this collaboration with the Royal Ballet, we created a range of shoes in collaboration with them. And then, so not only was it just for our team in Japan to sell the shoes, the relationship ran a lot deeper than that as well. And so we were able to work with the Royal Ballet on a tour that they went to Japan and actually help to promote that tour as well. So ballet is very much loved in Japan and they really appreciate it. And, for us to be able to work as well with them on that more cultural aspect of it was fantastic. And we did a photo shoot with Sarah Lamb, the principal ballerina of the Royal Opera, the Royal Ballet, and she did a number of signed photos for us, which we were then able to provide to our team out in Japan, for the whole sort of side of things. And it just ran deeper than here are some shoes, sell them,
Mm,
So,
yeah.
those are the types of relationships that we really enjoyed cultivating and working with, because it was a lot more than just sales in that sense. This was about being able to really bring the brand, like really let customers know about the brand and understand about the brand and a bit more about London as well. So those were the relationships that we really, really enjoyed. Taiwan was another great market for us in terms of working with great customers out there. And so Asia, in a sense, Asia it's quite a big one. I think also because of the fact that we do size 35 upwards, so we ran our sizes quite small, but also I think they really appreciated the whole London side of things, but as well as I think they really appreciate comfort and
Yeah.
style. I think it just runs quite naturally within them. But saying that, like Europe has always been really good for us as well, and so we have a great team out in the Netherlands, in Germany. So it's understanding, it's working with all of these partners to understand what those countries really want, and then trying to provide not necessarily a bespoke solution to them, but trying to provide something special for them as well, because there are differences within countries, and we want to be able to try and capture some of that within the designs as well.
So it's kind of dovetailing with their culture as you go along and working out what's going to appeal to their consumers best, I guess.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, but still retaining that whole London factor as well, because that's what they love.
Mm.
That's what
So,
the brand.
so you started with ballerina pumps, but then you diversified into other flat shoes, didn't you, such as loafers? So how did that come about? And was it a bit of a risk and a bit retro at the time? And why do you think they became so phenomenally popular?
Do you know what, Jane? I don't even remember when we did the loafers. So long ago, but um, I think at the time, like the ballet flat was it was really popular. It was the shoe of choice, wasn't it? Like all those years ago, it was like that's what you were going to wear, not just for work, but that's what you would choose to wear on the weekends and all the time as well. And then I think, it was it as with all things with fashion, you kind of like things go in circles, don't they? And at the time, I remember loafers coming up. Um, and for me, it was natural to be able to say, right, we're creating something that is still like a slip-on ballet flat, but it's got a different shape to it. Doesn't have a sweet bow on it. It's got more of a shield rather than that. So it wasn't really moving away from the ballet flat as such, but it was, I guess, adding something a bit different to the collection. Um, yeah, do you know, I don't remember it being a risk at all. I remember when I first received the samples, I remember the team in the office, they were just like, I love that. So I don't think it was ever a risk in that sense. I think it was that immediate, like, we need to launch this now because everyone has really loved it. Um, and yeah, I don't actually remember when that was, but quite some time ago. And then I think it just the style that the loafer, the Clapham loafer, which is the one that we launched with as our signature loafer, it's just been worn by so many wonderful people, and I think this has really helped it get it out there, and I think that's what has helped kind of bring that loafer style up for us. So it was never a risk as such. It was just like how quickly could we actually get it to market.
It's something you associate with people like Audrey Hepburn and Grace Kelly, isn't it? From their sort of era. So I think, the fact you've got now sort of new icons from this age kind of adopting that, it's great that that style is translating across so many decades and is still really popular with women.
But I think that's the key thing here, Jane, because I this is what I love about our brand. We can span generations. And I think, when I talk to so many customers, it's like, oh, my daughter wears them, or my mum also wears them. And it's like, that's just fantastic because it's it's all, you almost want to think of it as being a bit timeless in a sense, and it's not a trend.
Mm,
This is not this is we've never been about the latest trend. This is much more about a lifestyle movement in the sense of, we go back to what I was saying earlier about feeling mentally um fantastic about yourself as well. It was never intended to be like a sort of like trend in that sense. It's just been very organic for us in terms of this is what this is what women hopefully would want to be wearing, because comfort is so important, especially in today's world, when we're on our feet all the time. Comfort is absolutely key. And so when you marry that comfort and style, it's not about creating that sort of like, oh, a fad or a, short trend. It's much more about a lifestyle. And I feel that that is what we try and encapsulate in the brand as well.
Yeah, and you've actually sort of developed the brand further since the loafers, haven't you? Because you've now gone into trainers. I mean, how did that come about? That must have been, I suppose, with all the big brands like Nike and other people around, that must be a bit challenging at times. But I guess it was a really logical extension of the comfort factor again, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, when because we used to do a ton of trade shows, Gareth and I, we would walk the shows as well. And it was like, wow, trainers were everywhere. And to be really honest, it took us longer than perhaps it should have done to actually launch our range of trainers. And it all came back to, oh, but, is the customer going to understand why we're doing a non-foldable? In fact, actually, do you remember like years and years ago, it was I actually created a foldable trainer and a foldable boot. And I
Oh,
did that. I did that because it was very much about, well, I didn't want to diversify in that sense of creating a non-foldable. And it was just like, I think in a way I was almost a bit um I wanted to be the first to market in terms of creating a range of foldable footwear. I think that for me was like always a challenge personally, as well as, from a commercial point of view, where it was like, can you really create a pair of foldable trainers? What,
mm,
foldable boots? That's ridiculous. So, and in a way, to me, it was almost like going back all those days ago or years ago, to those industry experts again and saying, you see, it does work. You can
mm.
do it. So following on from that, it was very much about extending. We started to talk a lot more to our customers, and we started to really understand what it was that our customers loved about our footwear. And it came back, comfort was always like top, top, top. And so for us, when we were thinking about creating a trainer range, it was like, yeah, but we need to make these. We need to stick to that DNA. We've got to make sure that they're really comfortable, because otherwise it's just another trainer. It doesn't really work. Why should we be doing another trainer? So for us, it was very much about keeping to that ethos of comfort, comfort, comfort. And then, of course, having the design and the style married into it. But it took us quite a lot longer than what it should have done. And in fact, I remember, I think I was pregnant with Ellen, and I was in our trainers all the time. And it was then that it was just like, these have got to be launched because they are so amazingly comfortable. And yeah, and so that was it. That was kind of like the catalyst for it, to make sure that we did actually get these, properly, seriously get these out to market as well.
So what is it about your trainers that makes them so comfortable? What factors do they have built into them?
So I think for me, it's always been about the little details. So, you know, I think when people think about trainers generally, they always think comfort, right? But I think for me, I have to go that bit further. So the little pillowed tongues, for example, the cushioning underfoot to make sure it's really soft and spongy, using really soft leathers. Um, all of these little things that add these extra bits of comfort levels into every step, I think is really key and really important. And I think the other thing that came about more from feedback from customers was, I don't need to break into these. I can just wear and go. And that has actually become quite a big thing for us in terms of, yeah, actually, you don't have to, because the leathers are so soft, because there's so much padding in them around the ankle collars, around the backs of it, around in the bottoms of it, on the pillowed tongues. you just need to wear and go. You don't even need to, you shouldn't have to break into the trainers to go. And I think that's a really key factor. And again, as I say, that came through from customer feedback quite loudly, and on so many occasions that people were telling me this.
So this was all going marvelously, wasn't it, pre-pandemic, with the trainers and the loafers and ankle boots? How did you feel when you sort of heard about the news coming out of China and Italy as well in early 2020?
We had a lot of inside knowledge, shall we say, a lot of inside knowledge before a lot of others here. And I remember sitting up really late at night, or was it really early one morning? I don't remember. And just feeling really anxious about everything, because I was thinking, this is going to be huge and it's not even hit here yet. And people don't even seem to be taking it seriously here. And I think for me, that was, I just remember that whole feeling of being incredibly anxious about it. And then worrying like what on earth was going to happen.
But tell us, I mean, you diversified during lockdown, didn't you? So what did you do? Tell other people, because I think, it wasn't only just good for your brand, was it? It also did such a lot of good for charity as well.
And so I think this goes back to having a little bit of that inside knowledge as well. And my mum and dad, they live in Thailand, and they have a factory, they have a jewelry, they make jewelry, and they had to pivot as well. Their business, they had to pivot. And I remember having a conversation with them, and basically joking and saying, well, so are you going to make us some face masks? And my dad is very, very entrepreneurial, and the next thing I know, he had gone out and bought a sewing machine, and everyone in the team was learning how to sew. And then the next thing I know was that I had some face mask samples turn up, which was brilliant. And and I go back to, because we had a bit more of that, let's call it that insider knowledge. I feel like we actually had a bit of a head start on this, but in a way, like, both Gareth and I felt really weird in terms of capitalizing on the pandemic. Now, clearly, I'm not. Clearly, maybe we got something wrong there, because I think a lot of people made a lot of money out of the pandemic, but we had other ideas, and we just felt that it was wrong to sort of to make money out of the pandemic. And what we did was, with all the face masks that my mum and dad's company made for us, we donated the profits to charity. We work with a wonderful charity called the Honey Pot Children's Charity, who help young carers, and we basically donated the money, the profits from our face masks, to them, because we felt it was so wrong to to capitalize on it. It's a wonderful story for us, because I think, when we look back, it's just such a nice thing to be able to do. The young carers, they're going through a huge amount of change, and so for us to be able to do that, I'm really, really proud of that. And I feel, I mean, I'm inspired by what we did for them as well. So we helped to raise £30,000. I think it was about 30, maybe just over £30,000, for the Honey Pot Children's Charity through that. And I just think it's just been such a wonderful thing to come out of something that was not wonderful at all, the
It's
pandemic.
amazing how much was raised, isn't it? And it can do so much good for those children, can't it?
Yeah, and just on that as well. So during lockdown, Ellen, my daughter, Ellen and I, she was about one or two during that time, and there were loads of rainbows everywhere, because it was the rainbow of hope and this and that. And Ellen and I drew our own rainbow, and we put it onto one of our trainers, and that became our shoe that we would also donate £20 to the Honey Pot Children's Charity for as well. So that was, we had the face mask and we had the trainer that we were raising money for them. And I think when I look back, we still have the trainers today. And I think it's just one of those which I hope it will remain in the collection, because it's not only is it a fantastic shoe, but it does good as well.
Yeah. And, your face masks were actually adopted by some famous people, weren't they? I don't know whether we're allowed to talk about any of those, but I think if people Google that, they can probably find out who was wearing those. But also your shoes are also really popular with the rich and famous and celebrity A-listers, and can we say royals too?
I think, yeah, I go back. I just feel very, 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 very fortunate over the years to have um, seen my shoes worn by really influential, wonderful people. And I think this is something that I will always treasure. Never, ever did I even think this would ever be possible. And so, yeah, I just feel really, really fortunate with that. And I think it's something that I'll always hold very, very dear to me, in the sense of, wow, that is amazing. And yeah, just very proud of it.
Yeah. And it's not just shoes and it's not just face masks and that sort of thing now, is it? You've got a whole range of other things that you now provide to people. So
Yeah,
tell us about the new ones that have come into the range.
yeah, I think, something that came out of COVID, very much out of that whole stay at home sort of side of things, was we've now got a wonderful range of candles. So we work with a local business based in Muswell Hill, London. We work with a local business, and we do hand poured natural wax candles. We started with a range of 4, and we've now got 9 in the collection. If we go back to the early days, in terms of how I felt that we were quite early on in adopting something for COVID, we were very lucky to be able to talk to lots of customers as well, to be able to have that direct line. And we actually, like, we opened up, let's say, like, our phone lines, and just for people to telephone in and have a bit of a chat if they were feeling a bit anxious, if they were feeling you know, stressed or anything at all. It didn't have to be related to shoes or sales or anything. It was just, let's just have a chat. And for us, it was very much about learning out of that as well, that we learned from so many customers about that mental anxiety that they were going through. And so the candles was just a natural sort of progression for us, in terms of creating a range that was also giftable, so that people were able to give it. Because you know the other thing that came out of COVID was, you want to be able to see your friends again, see your friends and family. And how lovely is it to be able to send something to them, or take something little for them as well. So the candles was very much about that, being able to help alleviate that stress, that help lessen that mental load, but also something lovely for people to be able to give to someone, to say, I've been thinking about you, hope you're okay, that sort of thing. And then very, very recently, we've done a range of really, really lovely hand and body washes and lotions. So again, we're working with a lovely family run business in West Sussex, not very local, but still local, UK, for us. They make these beautiful hand and body washes and lotions for us. So we've got a range of 5 that we're about to launch, hopefully this week. And what's really exciting for me is that we've got some fantastic biodegradable bottles that these lotions and washes are coming in. So something quite different. Yeah, so lovely on the inside and outside is kind of like how I describe it. So yeah, look out for that coming soon.
And also coming soon is Small Business Saturday, isn't it? Would you like to sort of describe what it takes to run a small business in today's UK and what some of the challenges are?
Oh, where do I start, Jane? Where do I start with all the challenges involved? I don't want to put anyone off starting a business, but oh my goodness, it is tough. Um, yeah, really tough. I feel that we've been fighting I don't know, over the last however many years, I just feel that it's been like a challenge after a challenge, whether it's Brexit and then COVID and then recession and then another recession. I don't know. I feel it's been a real challenge over the years. But, saying that, there are peaks as well. It's not just troughs, there are peaks to it. There's the whole like flexibility and being able to work wherever you want to or doing whatever you want. So there is that side of things, which for me, with two little ones, I think is a real bonus as well. Also with two little ones, you can look at it from the other side as well and say, oh, why did I run my own business? But yeah, so without wanting to put anyone off, it is challenging. And I think for anyone who's looking to start their own business now, I think, they just need to really think carefully about whether they are prepared to sacrifice a lot, because it is about sacrifice, I feel. I would love to spin the whole glamour side of things of running your own business and all the, like how I was saying earlier, in terms of we were traveling everywhere and all sorts of things like that. But on the flip side, it is hard. It is really hard. But if you're prepared to put in the hours and to put in the work, and you're prepared to sacrifice things like a holiday or I don't know, like maybe financially, I think then it's the best thing to do. But
And
yeah, there's a lot.
I mean, you get some fantastic customer reviews, don't you? So that must be rewarding when you see those coming in. And also knowing you've liberated women to be able to wear the shoes that they want to wear. That must be a big plus for you.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, Jane, I think this is, I always refer to it like the wind beneath our wings when we get reviews like this, because it is what keeps you going. And especially as a small business, having that customer loyalty and that customer support, and knowing that you're doing something good out of all of this, I think that just really helps to keep us going. And to be honest, it's the inspiration behind everything. If we weren't getting that feedback and we weren't getting through to our customers in that sense, you'd almost think, what's the point of this? But there's so much more to it. And I think, that is really what it comes down to, in terms of, yes, I think I'm doing something right. We're definitely doing something right for women's mental health. So I think there's something in it as well, like that. And I think it has to come down to, it has to come down to it being the reason why we carry on, because clearly customers do love what we're doing, and we are making a bit of a difference somewhere, and that's what continues to push us on every single day.
And what's coming up for you next? You've got Black Friday, Christmas. What are the next shoes we can look for? Can you tell us a little bit about the
Lots of
next
exciting
few weeks?
shoes in the pipeline, Jane. Lots of exciting new stuff in the pipeline. So, so one of the things about our trainers, for example, is they've always been quite playful and fun, without being childish, I think is quite important to say. So injecting that bit of fun, that bit of glamour, but without being, like your sort of Minnie Mouse childish ways kind of thing. So, we've done our stars, rainbows on the trainers. We've done some stripes now, and then we've got some really exciting things coming up next. Some great materials, another great little symbol coming up as well. So I'll keep that under wraps, but that's coming soon. And the other thing that's been quite interesting for us thinking about Black Friday is a bit of a passion project of mine, really, something I've been working on quite a bit in the last few months, is basically looking to team up with a number of our friends. So say like our Cocorose London friends, i.e. other brands, other small businesses, other brands. And I've curated a number of gift boxes. So we've done themed gift boxes around, for example, the festive box, or the unwind and relax box, the afternoon tea box, things like this that are quite, I think, exciting as gifts, or you can indulge yourself as well. But we've teamed up with some other small businesses and brands to bring you a wonderful selection of items in the box. So do look out for this, and we're looking to launch this this week. So yeah,
Right.
it should be online quite soon. So yeah, do
Great.
look out for that.
Just in time then. And talking of, the time of year, I mean, we've got Christmas party season coming up. All these women heading to the dance floor. There must be a strong message for them to sort of think about the foldable shoe, take that out with them, because it's not just about saving your feet, is it? There is a kind of personal safety message there too.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said that, because I think for me, that's definitely up there in terms of priority for taking a pair of foldable shoes out with you as well. Fantastic if you're if you can survive in your heels all night or so, but for many of us who can't, I think taking a pair of foldable shoes with you is really, really important, because it's not just for changing into on the dance floor or whatever it is, but also walking home late at night. There is that personal safety message as well. So just stay safe, stay vigilant, make sure that you're able to, you're nimble on your feet. You don't want to um you don't want to risk anything like that. But also, on the other hand, it's never nice walking barefoot, is it, Jay? So
It
I think
certainly isn't,
there's
yeah.
another side of it as well, where it's just like, I'd quite like not having that chewing gum on my feet. Thanks very much.
Yes, indeed. And we've all done it. I'm sure every woman
Oh
out there
yes,
listening will know
yes,
exactly what we're talking
definitely.
about. But
Well,
yeah,
I can say that hands up, because that is partly the reason why these came about anyway. So, going full circle back to the beginning in terms of why I started this, why I created this, it was very much about that as well. You just want something comfortable to change into. You don't
mm,
want to walk barefoot, do you?
definitely not. It's a bit embarrassing. And it makes you look about 10 years older than you actually are. So it's not the thing to do, is it? But we touched a little bit on sustainability with your new bottles that are coming out for your hand lotion. But I think people can also recycle their Cocoa Rose shoes, can't they?
Yes. So, really exciting for us. So this year we started a recycling scheme, whereby you can send back your pre-loved Cocoa Rose shoes to us, and then in exchange we'll give you rosebuds, i.e. loyalty points, and we basically then send the shoes off to a charity, who will recycle and reuse. So if they can't recycle, then they will reuse it into anything but landfill. So whether they send it off to a developing country, or they create, for example, like they turn it into insulation for something. It's all about creating. It's all about making sure that your Cocorose shoes turn into anything but landfill. So for us, it was just something really natural in terms of a progression, in terms of what we wanted to do this year, in terms of helping from a sustainability point of view. But also talking about sustainability, I think one of the things that we are quite keen on getting the message out about is we make our shoes in small batches. And the reason why we do that is because it just helps reduce waste and overproduction. I think it's so easy for companies, especially big brands, to just make, it's so hard to forecast anyway, right? How many pairs of shoes anybody is going to sell. And so what a lot of the bigger companies do is they would just make a huge number. And then if they can't sell it, then it just gets shipped off to, I don't know, I mean, they used to burn things years ago, didn't they? I don't think that they do that anymore now. Or if they did, then, somebody really has to be told. But they'd go off to these other places for discounts, like huge discounts. And I think we try and avoid all of that, because we think it's far more sustainable and responsible to make sure that we produce what we need to produce. So we make in small batches to avoid that wastage and overproduction. Does it mean that we run out of sizes and stock too quickly? Yes, it does. But we would much rather that than ending up with extra shoes where it's just like, oh, well, what are we going to do now? Oh, I know, just let's just ship it off here and then,
Yeah, forget
you know,
about it. Yeah.
forget
Out of
about
sight,
it.
out of mind sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cause wastage elsewhere. And that's not what we want to do. So it is very much about working very carefully and in a controlled way with our production team and making sure that we can do things in a much more responsible way.
Hmm. So, despite all the tough times that you've had, and undoubtedly there've been a lot of those lately, would you do it all again? If Janan of 15 plus years ago could think back, would she still do it?
Jane, I'm trying not to laugh. Because obviously the answer is yes, I would do it all again because I love what I do. I feel I've had so many experiences through Cocorose that I would never have been able to have if I was just doing a normal job. Whether it, yeah, I mean, just so much that I can't even um, I'm very grateful for, and those experiences have come purely because of Coca Rose. So yes, in a heartbeat, I would do it again. Would I do things differently? The answer is probably yes. I probably would look at doing things slightly differently. And I think that's where I think, well, you live and learn, don't you?
Mm.
um, so, yeah, well, we used to make shoes. We spent quite a lot of time in the early days. We spent a lot of time and a lot of money on passionately trying to make shoes here in England. Would I do that again? No, I wouldn't, because that's an example of how you can basically get sidetracked. And we were doing fantastic shoes out of Italy and out of China, and that's where we should have just continued to focus on. So I think there are things like that where, these are the lessons that I would probably look at myself. If I was looking back at myself all those years ago, I would say, yeah, you can skip that one, focus more on this one. And maybe try and visualize a lot more in terms of where I would have wanted to get to. Um, so I think, yes, in a heartbeat, I'd absolutely do it all again. And to anyone who was listening about what I was saying about how it's really challenging starting your own business, absolutely, it is totally incredibly challenging. But is it rewarding? More than anything, I think this has been such a rewarding experience for me. And that is what I take out of it. And what I would continue to tell myself, if I was looking back at myself as well, just look at how rich in experiences you are. So yeah, rich financially, not so sure, but rich experience wise, definitely.
And I know that you're also really proud to have given the English language the verb to Coco Rose. Would you like to sum up for our listeners what that means, what the essence of
Well,
that phrase
I
means?
think I think Jane, this goes back again, what I was saying earlier, where it's a lifestyle. It's a movement, isn't it? It's not a trend. So if you're going to Coca Rose it, then you Coca Rose it. There's a bit of that sass, a bit of that confidence. It all comes down to that sort of mental state of mind, isn't it? Well, mental and physical state of mind in terms of feeling incredibly happy and confident in yourself. So a number of years ago, we came up with the term women powered, and it was all about creating that inner confidence in terms of, you feel good physically, but mentally as well. And I think to Coca Rose, it just sums all of that up, hopefully, in terms of it's your way of life.
Yeah, and from a personal level, I can say that, sometimes when those shoes are on my feet, it is like kind of floating on air. You feel so good. They look so good. You know that everybody's kind of admiring them from afar, and it just elevates you to another level, really. I mean, I've done things like I've swanned around the NEC exhibition centre in them. I've been to events in them. I've even had little purses in my hand, and people have said, "What are those?" And people are so envious. And something that I will tell you that one client, a man in Yorkshire, actually, looked at them and said, "Oh, I know all about those shoes because my wife takes them racing with her."
Oh,
And I
brilliant.
know that that is another big market, isn't it? Ladies who go racing and are in their heels all day love their Coco
Absolutely.
Roses.
We tend to see a spike on website sales pre-Ascot. So it's definitely something for, to have, because yeah, you want to get dressed up to the nines when you go to the races, don't you? But
Yeah.
at the same time, you want to make sure that you can continue to look completely glamorous as the day goes on as well. So having a pair of beautiful and comfortable shoes with you is the way to go. But yeah, do you know what's really funny? All those years ago, when I used to do the backyard market in the east in Hackney in London's East End, when I used to chat to our customers, or like people who would come up to the stand and then potentially become a customer, what was really funny was whenever they were with the other half, that he would get it quite quickly. And I think it's because it's quite gadgety. I'm not saying that women don't get gadgets or anything like that. It was just so interesting how immediately it was like, oh my God, I really love that. And then when I would, you would then demonstrate all of this to the customers. And then of course you had the little bag in the back as well to be able to put your heels in. It was like, oh my God, you've thought of everything. That's amazing. So yeah, it was just it's really funny, isn't it, how we look at things quite differently.
Well, I can honestly say I've been Coco Rosing it for 15 plus years because I think I probably got one of the prototypes from you at a
You
cafe in
probably
Euston,
do.
Euston Station Cafe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all those years ago. Oh my goodness, that was a lifetime ago.
But yeah,
But
I mean, they
they've
are.
changed, haven't they? We've evolved. The shoes have developed and evolved over the years, haven't they? And I think that just comes down to, we get better with every year. Hopefully, we get better in terms of like being able to find better materials, or being able to do things in a better way. And that's what we're always striving to do as well, to just improve and do better.
And I think, yeah, like you say, they're unrecognizable really from that first prototype pair. They are stunning. So I would advise any woman listening to this to get onto cocoroselondon.com and buy themselves a pair or ask for them for Christmas.
Yeah,
Christmas coming up,
yeah.
and become a Coco Rosa.
Brilliant. Yes, we love hearing from all of our Cocorosers and adding to the family as well. And wherever you are in the world, it's one of those where it's like it's just so nice to hear from customers all over the world who Cocorose it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for talking to us. And I hope we haven't taken up too much of your time, but it's been lovely to chat to you.
Been a pleasure, Jane. Thank you so much.
Thank
Speak
you.
soon.
So there we go. All I can add to this fantastic insight into this amazing brand is that if you personally have never had a pair of Cocorose London shoes, whether that's foldable flats or trainers, on your feet, you've really been missing out. In fact, if I'd not had those tucked away in my bag when I went to an awards interview in London, I would never have actually won an award that has contributed to 59 in my trophy cabinet. I remember that day very well. I was heading to my interview, all calm, relaxed, absolutely, on the verge of going to this quite intimidating interview, I would say, when the taxi driver suddenly pulled up sharp, slammed on the brakes, and said, "I can't get you there." There was some incident in Tottenham Court Road that meant it was completely shut, and his advice was, "You're just going to have to leg it." At that point, what does a girl do? But reach inside her briefcase and pull out her Cocorose London shoes, say to the taxi driver, "Hang on one moment, I just need to change my heels," pop on the Coco Roses, and literally go legging it, running across streets and streets to get to her interview on time. So that is just one advantage of having Coco Rose in your handbag, but there are many others, believe me. So ponder on that before we speak again. And in the meantime, remember, life is much more fun when you're poodling around. And maybe I should say, especially when you're Coco Rosing it.